And finally, here we are. Good to see y'all tonight.
I know,
Y'all
right?
just say a little prayer for E-Train. She's been having a little technical difficulties.
I'm a hot mess tonight, y'all. It's gonna be one of those nights. I apologize profusely.
So it is good to see y'all.
Okay.
Sky, Jane, Melissa.
Where am I? Oh shit. Hang on, y'all.
Apparently the technical difficulties are not over with.
There we go.
She's discovering the light switch.
It'll be make fun of
we,
E Train night. How about that?
we do appreciate y'all being here, and we appreciate y'all's patience.
I can't. I just can't. Just, okay. I'm good. I'm trying.
Y'all join in with me telling E-Train she looks perfect. She looks great. We're glad to have her here with us.
Yes. By the way, I did speak to Melissa last night. She is safe and back home. Um, there is a pinned comment at the very top of the YouTube. It is a GoFundMe for. Oh, did you remove my thingy?
No.
Or did I do that? I did that, didn't I?
Yep.
I don't know if you guys remember the Beetlejuice um, party that Melissa went to with Green Bean.
We'll throw him back up.
I'm about to. I just got to figure out how to do it again. There it is. He and his wife lost their home, everything. It's Jeff and his wife Emily. So there is a GoFundMe if you guys have anything that you can donate, even the tiniest little bit. I'm sure it will go a long way to help them um, try to rebuild.
Yeah, we are not a big channel, obviously, but if you can donate 10, 15, 20, $30, whatever,
Hmm.
these people have been devastated. So we just uh, wanted to try to encourage whatever help we could. We know everybody's got their own issues, their own concerns, but if you can help out, it's a very close friend of Melissa, and so if
And
there's
Green Bean.
and obviously a very close friend of Green Bean, uh, and they have a puppy too. So y'all chip in and help buy some puppy food. Um,
Yes, please.
and that is going to be obviously the topic of tonight. Most of you have seen the imagery coming out of um, California, out of LA. This is just an aerial picture we're using as a background tonight, showing the number of showing that section of the city and the number of houses, buildings involved.
Clay's having verbal issues tonight.
He always does. Trying to think and talk at the same time. It's not as easy as it looks. Don't try this at home.
Anyway.
But we do appreciate you being with us tonight, and we are um, happy to share with you another episode of Moffat on Money. We can only hope not. For those of you who aren't familiar, last week something was going on with SoundStream and my mic, and I sounded like Alvin, sped up and higher pitched. It was ridiculous. Could not figure out how to get it stopped.
It was pretty funny though.
I'm glad y'all enjoyed it. It's a little bit of a sad night. Tonight's subject is, to me, impactful and personal. I've got several friends, not only Melissa, but some others affected by this, though none of them have been injured. And, like I said, we have some family members on the show who've been impacted as well. So We'll explore tonight the immediate destruction, the cost, the long-term implications from this disaster. And we'll try to work a little bit to uncover what is being done and not done to maybe prevent this from happening again. So let's begin.
Hang out real quick. Thank you all on Rumble and X for being here. If you guys have a comment or a question, please feel free to pop it. I am watching all three channels right now. So thank you for being here, and we're here for it.
And Jane, I appreciate the the best show ever was when I sounded like Alvin.
I was thinking maybe we should do that more often.
I have no idea how to bring it back. Probably wouldn't if I could. I'm just going to let that one glorious moment shine for eternity.
There's this cool thing called a soundboard. Oh, we can make you sound like Alvin again.
Oh, geez. Yeah, I don't have a soundboard. Good encouragement not to get one.
Mm-mm.
All right, we're going to begin, I guess, at the beginning. The Palisades fire ignited, from the best I can determine, sometime on January the 7th. So that's 4 days ago. And in 4 days, this one fire has scorched 23 to 25,000 acres and is only, apparently, as of this morning, was only 11% contained. Now, there are several other fires that have sprung up, which is interesting to me. The Eaton fire, so far, is smaller but equally destructive, and right now it's raging through the densely populated neighborhoods there, having scorched about 15,000 acres. So here is a video of the devastation in Malibu.
No sound.
Well, no sound?
No sound.
Apparently you popping that other one up throws it off too. So let me do this.
Sorry.
Now it's StreamYard. I would think by now they would get their stuff correct. All right. Try it now.
We hear you, but not programming.
And obviously tough connections right now. Tony, can you hear us?
That house is interesting.
Yeah. Okay. I hear the producer. I do not. Okay, there we go.
I did not realize it at first.
But
this house
mm-hmm.
is interesting because it looked like this before.
Really?
And that house happened to belong to Paris Hilton.
Huh.
So I thought that was interesting. It's right there on the beach of Malibu, on the beach side of the road. And I thought that was just amazing how little was left of the house, the building. But there you go. I didn't actually realize that it was hers till I saw somebody tweet it out. So I thought that was kind of interesting. As you can see, the destruction is complete. And from what little we've seen in these areas, chaos is kind of reigning. Now, to make matters worse, authorities suspect arson in at least 2 of these fires, maybe linked to looters trying to cover their tracks. Dogs, why don't they have water? That's a whole story of its own, and we're going to talk about that as we go on. I did see one guy in Malibu. Apparently, He rented a big water pump and hose, fire hose, threw it out in the ocean, ran the hose up to his house, and he was on his roof defending his house.
Good idea.
Apparently, his is one of the few or only one left standing. So that was an interesting approach. Yeah, I agree, Jen. It must be kind of. It is good to see y'all. Sky, Jane, Melissa. Highly irritating to.
Hang on, y'all.
Apparently, the technical difficulties are not over with.
I didn't touch a thing. Here we go.
She's discovering the light switch.
What is going on?
I think that was me.
Oh, ha.
Well, the best thing was seeing you try to figure out how to solve it.
Mm-hmm.
This is a website, fire.ca.gov, and it shows, this is Los Angeles, and this shows you the region and kind of the size of the areas involved in the fire, with several different locations starting up: Kenneth, Hurst, and Eaton. So, and it shows the relative intensity. So it's kind of an interesting little map. Now, I also saw this out on the Times, and it had some kind of cool little graphics. One picture, obviously, shows you how intensely, the buildings are burning. This one I thought was interesting. This is a satellite photo of, showing first the smoke, then the infrared. But tons, you just really don't realize when you see that much smoke coming from a satellite, that's a hell of a lot of smoke. This is kind of a time lapse showing how fast it's spread. And this is, one day at a time. So tremendously rapid spread. And hence the devastation we're seeing in some of these photos. Now, as far as wildfires,
hang on. That's a good question.
Yeah, Melissa, where are you on that map, north, south, and east?
Can you put it back up?
Yeah. All right. Melissa,
I think she's in here somewhere.
Is somewhere in here. So it's only a few million people in there, but
yeah, in here.
Yeah. So we don't want to give out, any precise locations, but that'll give you an idea of where she is. Now, wildfires have, become more frequent in this region and intense over the years. I don't think there's a whole lot of argument about that. In 2020, the Bobcat fire burned over 115,000 acres. And this was, one of, if not LA County's largest fire in history. Now, experts, point to several different factors contributing to this. You've got the prolonged droughts. You've got changes in forest management. You've got budgetary priorities. And you've got delayed responses to fire prevention strategies. So we're going to talk kind of about all of those. Now, weather also plays a role. Don't know how many of you have heard of the infamous Santa Ana winds, but they are winds that blow down off the San Andreas Mountains, which are to the east, across LA out into the ocean. And sometimes those winds can gust at 50, 60 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour. Well, they've had some strong winds, strong gusts. And so that acts as a bellows for these flames, for these fires. If you've ever seen a blacksmith with his furnace, he's got a bellows that sometimes he'll pump air into the bottom, underneath the coals and the embers, the flame, to heat it up. And so that's kind of a good example of what's going on in California. Combine that with months of drought. California normally has, it's kind of interesting. California's had several months of drought, maybe the driest year since 24. So you've got the fire starting, you've got the winds, you've got the drought, you've got lack of forest management, lack of fire prevention strategies, you've got an expanding population, creeping closer and closer to these woodlands, or actually in the woodlands, and you've got a perfect recipe for disaster. Now, I mentioned that California is having a drought this year, 2024. Well, technically, California has been out of drought since about 2021. It has seen record rainfall. Now, when California gets rain, it normally comes quickly, short period of the year, or at least Southern California. If you look at the ocean currents, most of the wind and the rain is north of Southern California. Northern California, Oregon, Washington get a fair amount of rain, obviously. Southern California, not so much. And, one factor to this is the drier it gets, the drier it gets. Because where there are trees and, an active, what do I want to call it? Not a jungle, but an active bunch of stuff growing, it helps increase ground hydration and contributes, moisture to the air. Trees breathe. It's kind of like the Amazon jungle. The more it gets cut down, the less rain it has. So many of the practices engaged out in the area are making the land dry, dead, unable to sequester carbon. And it's kind of starving the area of the ability to generate much plant life, to improve the microclimate, vegetation. Thank you, Jane. Couldn't think of the word. Now, this isn't just anecdotal. The National Fire Center reported a 223% increase in wildfires across California over the past 2 decades. Fires that were once contained within days now rage for weeks, with containment efforts stretching, the available emergency services to their limits. And, my question is, how many are started by arson? That's hard to tell. We don't have good info on that.
Tony, now that we're getting some daylight, what are you seeing in that?
The economic toll, just so far, as of this morning, estimates have it at about $150 billion, yes, billion dollars, with about 20 billion of that being insured. These losses, as of today, make this the costliest fire in U.S. history, and the number's only going up because there is such small containment.
Now, wait a minute. I thought that a lot of the insurance companies canceled the fire insurance on houses just a few weeks ago.
Well, it wasn't a few weeks ago, and we're actually going to get to that some. It's been over the past several years, and they quit writing or renewing. The ones they have in force are still in place. They just won't be renewed when they're up.
There was a lady that I saw on, I think it was on X. Her parents have been in the same house for over 50 years, same insurance company,
Right.
and they dropped them.
Yep.
So
We'll
they're
talk
not
about that.
insured for this fire.
Yeah, let me delay that just for
Okay.
a minute. We'll talk about insurance.
Okay.
And yes, Melissa, that is feed bin and Chilada. I picked these two out because one, they've both been incinerated, and two, I've eaten at both places, and they are like landmarks in Malibu. They are part of the 40,000 acres that have been destroyed or damaged by the fires. 40,000 acres in just 4 days. About 12,000 structures, and so far 11 fatalities. Now and my numbers were largely as of this morning, and I'm just pulling them from different places, so I can't say that they are exactly correct or current. But what I have is 180,000 residents have been displaced. 180,000 people have been displaced. That's a small city right there. You've got another 200,000 under evacuation warnings. So, these two places that are both were great places. I love little, I don't know, I call them hole in the walls. They're not fancy. It's just good environment, good people, good food. They survived the pandemic, which put a ton of businesses out of business. And, now they've just been reduced to ash. Beloved spots have been incinerated. That creates problems all of its own. Unemployment. This fire is going to create thousands of unemployed, from baristas to builders will be suddenly jobless. And you think builders, keep that in mind. We'll talk about that shortly. Major employers in the area like tourism and retail, are shuttering operations indefinitely. For those fortunate enough to keep the jobs, just commuting to work is going to be hell because of, major highways being closed and infrastructure damaged, roads damaged, debris, junk, fire, whatever. Housing is feeling the ripple effects. You just saw some of the properties in Malibu along the coast. I saw one individual with I think it was a $6 or $8 million house on Malibu. Now, let me do this. If I throw up again Paris's house, you can tell it's not really a huge house, and they are almost wall to wall. That's one problem. If one house catches fire, the other one's catching fire with any degree of wind and no water. They're not really terribly big houses, but each one of these houses goes for, $3, $6, $12 million.
Wow.
I saw, an individual that had a $6 million house that was burnt. He was offered $750,000 for the lot. So did not see whether or not he was going to accept or not. But that's, if you want to know what's going to happen to land values, those pieces of land before the fire would have been $2 million, $3 million. So housing is going to be slammed. In areas that are not affected by the fire, home prices are going to soar as displaced families search for new residences. Neighborhoods near the fire zones are seeing, their property values crash. It could take years, and I mean a decade, 15 years, for these areas to recover, especially if insurance payments and government aid remain sluggish. And they will. History is, that's not even up for debate. It will be very slow. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. Jane, like North Carolina and Tennessee, yeah, these areas have been hammered. People are still sleeping in tents. And I saw where this past week, FEMA was ending its hotel supplement payments to people that lost their houses and have been living in a hotel. FEMA's been paying for it. Well, that stopped this week. So now a bunch of them are out, I don't know, in tents, and it's 20 degrees up there. It's just, anyway. Tourism industry, a major economic driver for the LA area, will be slammed. Iconic destinations like Griffin Park and Malibu beaches will be, partially or completely closed, and it'll take a year, 2 years. Even Malibu, it's going to be 2, 3, 4 years for those houses get cleaned up and rebuilt. Who wants to go? How many tourists will that attract? I don't know. A recent quick survey from of the LA Tourism Bureau, they had a flash estimate of about a 15% drop in annual visitors. I mean, that'll translate to millions and millions in lost revenue, and I'd be willing to bet that estimate is low. Now, let's talk about the role of government. Throughout history, controlled burns, forest thinning are proven methods for reducing wildfire risk. Yet they have been stymied by environmental regulations. Laws like the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, aim to protect ecosystems, but often result in an accumulation of flammable material. And here's what we're talking about up here in this corner with this, fireman. You see a controlled burn. The flames are very low grade, and you have individuals around keeping an eye on them. You've got, water trucks nearby. It's done during certain times of the year when only the, dead undergrowth, early spring, whatever, the dead undergrowth will die, but there is greening in the trees, etc. Clears out, a lot of the dead debris, the underbrush. The bottom picture shows kind of a pre-burn, immediately after the burn, and then 9 months later. This is what's known as controlled burning. And the benefit of controlled burning is it gets rid of all the dead debris, dry wood, dead grass, etc., that accumulates after years and years and contributes to hot, fast-moving, intense flames. Now, according to a 2019 report from the Forest Service, there were and this was in 2019, there were over 150 million dead trees in California's forest. And these dead trees act like fuel loads. I mean, jet fuel loads for wildfires. Most every other state, Florida, has a lot of wilderness areas. And they implement aggressive prescribed burn programs carefully managed by the Forest Service, which significantly reduced wildfire risk. Another problem, budget cuts. In 2018, LA Fire Department's budget was $500 million. By 2022, it was slashed to $325 million. This past year, it was cut another 17 or 18 million. So all told, these cuts have resulted in staffing shortages, outdated equipment, leaving firefighters struggling to keep up to fight. One veteran remarked, saw a quote, "We're doing the work of 10 people with the resources of 5."
Clay, real quick, I'm having camera issues. I'm going to leave and come back and see if I can fix what's going on. Because
Okay.
I'm like doing weird shit. Okay. I'll be right back.
Yep. Sky, Mel Gibson's house went down. Billy Crystal, Heidi Montag. There's just a bunch of them that have been incinerated. While I hate that for them, I don't, I guess, worry about them as much because they have other houses they can go to. But there's a lot of people in these impacted areas that's all they had. They have nowhere else to go to. That's the problem. But LA, it has 4,000 firefighters serving a city of about 4 or 5 million. 4,000. It averages 2,000 calls a day. 2,000 calls, and has fewer stations and fewer men than it did 30 years ago. Now, to make matters worse, the federal government has programs to fund wildfire management, and they've been inconsistent. While $1 billion was allocated for fire prevention, this past couple of years, less than 10% of that went to California, a state that accounts for 40% of the nation's wildfire damage. Now, part of that is California's fault because they won't allow wildfire management, so there's no use giving them the money for it. But that just, that is a main contributor to the intensity and the extent of the damage and the inability to contain it. The immediate repercussions, and this is really sad. Looting has become a grim reality. I don't know how well you can see it, but this bottom photo is a indoor camera looking at a foyer, and you see, 2 men wandering through it wearing sweatpants and hoodies. They are looters going through an empty house looking for valuables that they can cart off. Police are stretched thin. They're focusing on evacuations. I already mentioned that they had over 200,000 evacuated. They just don't have the manpower. Practical reality. It's leaving neighborhoods vulnerable. There are some report that, and I couldn't confirm them, so take it with a grain of salt, but some report that there are gangs setting fires, forcing evacuations so that they can plunder the house. Again, hadn't been verified. So far, 20 people have been arrested for looting. Apparently, that's just kind of a drop in the bucket. Well, one man that was arrested, couldn't find a picture of him, had a modified blowtorch he was using to start fires. And a group of citizens forcibly detained him. But when police arrived, they quote unquote couldn't charge him because of lack of evidence. Holding a blowtorch and 4 or 5 witnesses saying they saw him setting fires, I just don't know what's going on. He was detained for a felony probation violation, but I'm not sure what happened. Couldn't find anything as to how that ended up. Some residents who can afford it are enlisting private security to safeguard their neighborhoods. A guy by the name of Sean Ben, founder of NatSec, a security service, described the methods looters were employing. He said, quote, "What we see is that people are trying to improvise to get in, wearing uniforms of fire marshals, security companies. They're wearing white helmets, coming with clipboards." He believes the looters are professionals, noting they use drones and jammers to disrupt Wi Fi so home security cameras won't detect them. They use drones to see if there's any activity in or around the house, kind of peer in the windows, see if anybody's there. They'll go knock as if they're an inspector or trying to get people to evacuate. No answer. They have jammers to disrupt the Wi-Fi so that the cameras don't work and there's no alarm sent. Or they just cut off the Wi-Fi. Find the Wi-Fi cable, cut it off. Which, if you have a home security system and it's based off of Wi-Fi, that may be a lesson for you there. There's also the psychological toll. Families are grappling with loss, obviously, not only of homes, but, of heirlooms and memories. Most anybody that has a residence and, some pictures, photographs, whatever, has some things that they think, if there's a fire and I have to grab a few things to, take with me quickly, what would it be? And most of the time, for most people, it's pictures and little mementos and memories, childhood memories. Probably didn't have a chance to collect a lot of that, or a lot of that is just vaporized now. And, how about children, small children? Schools would be another big hit to kids. Dozens and dozens of schools in these fire zones have been closed. Thousands of students are going to be back to remote learning, which most of y'all know I'm in education, and I absolutely hate remote learning. Students don't learn, bottom line. They do not learn. People say, well, it's not a perfect solution. It's not that it's not a perfect solution. It's a horrible solution. It sets students back for years. Absolutely years. There's also the risk of social unrest. Just looking at history, I'm not judging the people of this area or LA or whatever. I just look at history. And in areas devastated by natural disasters or emergencies, there is a reoccurring phenomenon driven by desperation, resource scarcity, inequality, opportunistic criminals. Look at Katrina, 2005 in New Orleans. I had friends that were working with Blackwater maintaining security. They were, for example, watching part of the Superdome. Part of the Superdome was the Wild West, but they, kept a contained area. There was looting, widespread violence, gangs roaming the streets. Opportunistic criminals take advantage. In LA in 92, you had the riots, you had looting and arson, occurring then. Haiti's earthquake in 2010, you had looting and violence, breakdown of social order, lack of access, primarily driven by lack of access to food and water. Now, honestly, my opinion, don't look for FEMA to come in and accomplish much. They have sucked in Western North Carolina and Eastern Tennessee, particularly in the more rural, harder hit areas. In some of the cities like Asheville, great, they did okay. But in the more remote areas, they've just literally abandoned those people. That's a story for another day. There is a high correlation between scarcity of items and looting and violence. Now, I have no idea, and I'm not making a prediction of how pervasive the damage, the looting, whatever will be, the extent of social unrest. I have no idea when the fires will be contained or extinguished, how many new ones will start. I have no idea how quickly and effectively relief supplies will be distributed. Remember, 180,000 people are already homeless, displaced, in addition to the homeless that were already in LA. The one advantage, and there is one significant advantage here, is that all of those people live in the same area. It's a dense population. So that makes getting food and water to them easier than it is in rural, distant areas. Problem is many have no other houses to go to or funds to leave the area. And violence has already increased. The National Guard has been called out. So I'm not making any predictions as to what's going to happen because there's so many different variables. But I'm telling you there's a risk. And I'm telling you what's happened in history. Now, let's talk about insurance or the lack of it. Major insurers like State Farm and Allstate have pulled out of California. They started in 22-23 due to what they perceived as the high risk and the regulatory challenges. Also, California implemented a 7% cap on premium increases. So the insurance companies said, we think the risk is too great. We can't make money. We're not going to sell our products here. So they pulled out. Now that left some smaller insurance companies that were still there. Those are some of the ones that were pulling out during the summer or announcing they were no longer going to write new insurance. If you had an existing contract with them, then they still have to honor that if you've already paid. If you're on a monthly pay or quarterly pay, then they cover you till the end of the month or the end of the quarter. They won't renew it. Well, California also has something called the FAIR Plan. This is a kind of a state-run insurance pool, but it's costly and limited. I'm not sure how extensive, all the payments. I didn't have time to go into all the terms, conditions, and coverages. But most people described it as costly and limited. Now, what about those with houses? If you have a mortgage, your house is gone. What happens? Do you still have to pay your mortgage? Most people would think yes, but the answer is not that simple or straightforward. Traditionally, in most states, families, individuals affected by natural disasters, such as wildfires, can apply for assistance, such as a forbearance. This is a pause in your mortgage payment for a period of time, maybe 6 months, and that may be able to be renewed. So if you're, in the area and you've been, hit by damage, the first step for you to do is contact your mortgage company, your mortgage servicer, and inform them of your inability to pay. Now, whether you have a conforming or a jumbo mortgage in California, a conforming mortgage is probably less than $750,000. Maybe in some areas of the city, Pacific Palisades, it might be up to 1.2 million, somewhere around there. Jumbos would be the mortgages higher than that, larger than that. Most lenders will likely grant a loan modification or a forbearance, particularly if it's a loan backed by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac or VA. The if you remember in the subprime crisis, there was a lot of defaults on the mortgages. Lessons learned. Banks don't handle losses, and defaults on mortgages are up, defaults on credit cards are up, defaults on floor plans are up, defaults on auto loans are up, defaults on commercial real estates are like Armageddon. Banks are hurt. I just don't know how much more they can take without some serious, serious consequences. So they will be strongly inclined to try to work with you under some shape, manner, or form. Now, rebuilding, if you've, suffered loss or damage, rebuilding is a whole nother beast. We've seen construction cost over the past few years skyrocketed due to inflation and supply chain issues. There's still not the number of lumber mills running that there were pre-pandemic. It's only going to get worse. So let's look at kind of the next few months. If you're impacted, what can you expect over the next few months in the impacted areas? You can expect basically a lot of pain. Now, Governor Newsom has a lot of responsibility on his shoulders to try to accelerate this process. It's going to be a hassle. It's going to be slow. But the first thing he needs to do is coordinate with FEMA. Get access to supplies to the impacted areas and get assessment of the damage. This is going to be a slow and arduous process. It needs to be done far quicker, but it won't be. You're going to have, people come in and appraise the damage and determine, who's hurt, who's not, to what extent. It's just the way the process works. FEMA will come to your house and they'll walk around, and if there's no house there, they'll cut you a check for $750. There you go. It'll be 6 months to a year probably before you get much else out of them. Kind of another complication, but in some ways a necessary one, is that once the National Guard and FEMA are called out and take control of an area, is that they often won't allow access for days or weeks to the impacted properties. So you're out wondering, whether your house is burned down or not. Was because he evacuated and he saw the fires in his area and he thought, my house is gone. Well, when he went back, 4 days later, his house was still standing, not scorched. So big relief there for him. But, can you imagine being 3, 4, 5 days, a week, 2 weeks, wondering whether or not your house is still standing or whether it's in a pile of ashes? Sky, insurance companies will go bankrupt. If they had issued coverage at the low premiums, they would. $20 billion is still a pretty big loss. But that's one reason why they got out of the area, out of California.
Guys, I apologize. I can't seem to get my camera to do what it's supposed to do. So I'm going to be laggy.
Oh, you look fine, kind of laggy.
At least I'm not Alvin, right?
At least you're not Alvin. The pollution. I mean, you saw the satellite photo of the smoke, and if you've seen some pictures, it's so dark and dense in areas it makes daytime look like night, or dusk, maybe not completely night, but there's a lot of cinder and all in the air. All right, so access is limited. Mystery and confusion for homeowners. Third thing is expect a bureaucratic nightmare, a complete hassle the whole way through. I mean, just starting off where to stay long term. You know, if, will you need to rent a car? What if you need a truck or a bigger car and there's only electric vehicles and Priuses available? If you're in the construction business, driving a Prius is not a good thing. Get ready to make Home Depot or your local hardware store your best friend, because you're going to need shovels, you're going to need screens, gloves, plywood, you're going to need tarps, you're going to need hammers,
Masks.
saws, chainsaws, mask. What you want to try to do is, like, how often do you need a chainsaw? Well, once or twice. Try to go in with neighbors and buy some of this one-time equipment. Because one, there's not going to be great availability of these items for a while. And two, where do you store it where it won't be stolen?
Yeah, it's hard to say.
That's a problem, particularly when all the buildings have been burned to the ground. Next item that's going to be a hassle: call the utilities. Figure out how to turn off and physically disconnect the gas, water, power, internet, your TV subscription, whatever. And you also need to be careful of the cost to restart. I know in some districts, like in Florida, if you disconnect, the cost to reconnect is in the thousands of dollars. So it may be cheaper for you to just turn it off yourself and then just pay the minimum monthly bill for a while. Just find out before you make a firm decision. Try to locate the shutoff valves for the water and the gas. Next step, number 6, find a contractor quick. Their schedule will fill up soon. The whole area probably will be filled with grifters. Some of them may be good. Very few, if any, will be licensed. What they do offer is they've got the tools and good prices. Melissa, the air is just terrible.
I bet.
Yeah.
And you're burning plastics and
everything.
wood, and everything you can think of. Think about people, I know I typically store like spray paint in the garage, fuels, the lithium ion batteries that are burning.
The EVs that catch fire, they can't put them out with water. That's a problem in a lot of these garages. One reason why the houses incinerated or, so quickly is you had EVs in the house. You had, our solar batteries, solar systems with the big batteries. Those things catch fire. Anyway, so you'll have a lot of construction people kind of heading to the area. I don't know where they're going to stay. I don't know how you'll get a hold of them. They'll just be driving around the neighborhood looking. And again, some of them will be good, some of them not, but very few, if any, will be licensed. You just try to work out the best deal you can. Number 7, find a place to dump your dirt and debris after you figure out a way to haul it there. Sometimes I've seen where neighborhoods will take an empty lot and use it to dump the debris until FEMA a year later can come and haul it off, or the city does, or whatever. But, you've got to you've got all the cinder, ashes, burnt items, etc. You need to find a place to put it. Now, if your home has been completely obliterated, obviously that's not a problem. Number 8, scavengers. These will be people, just driving through the neighborhoods looking for like old appliances to pick up, busted appliances, because they'll take it and sell it for junk, or they'll rip out the copper tubing from the AC systems, that kind of thing. Some of them are, actually hired to do it. People, trying to get help removing some of the debris. Some of them are just thieves. You probably have no way of telling which ones are which. Prepare to cut deals. Cut deals. Cut deals. Always try to cut a deal. Contracts will be handshakes. Now, sometimes permits normally would be required. Probably still would if you called City Hall, but if you want to get stuff done, sometimes you just have to do it. For major work, you will have to get a permit. So, balance that as best you can. For necessary permits, you'll have to find a notary. Most people don't think about this, but a notary is going to be your best friend, because for so many of the permits and documents, they have to be notarized. And notaries are going to be scarce. That bank branch that you had down the street probably is incinerated as well. So notary's not going to be there. But find one now and keep track of where they are. If you have insurance, excuse me, on your property, one word of advice is you really can't touch anything until an adjuster comes. Schedule one now. You may even need a notary to submit paperwork for the claims. But the adjuster will have to look at the property in its, natural state in order to make an appraisal. And then you can file a claim.
I know that kind of sounds silly, but like if you go and you start cleaning stuff up, you could get less money from the insurance company because you've done some of the work already.
Yeah, and they also might worry about things being staged to look worse.
Correct.
So you just get into a pissing contest that never benefits you. Number 12, hope you're good at multitasking, but get used to coordinating a bunch of balls in the air at once. Even if you don't live there, even if you've had to move out of town. The paperwork, the availability of contractors, subcontractors, negotiating the bids, making sure the terms have been fulfilled. It's going to be a busy couple of years. It's going to be a big hassle.
And if you happen to know somebody who's a licensed contractor, reach out to them first. If it's somebody that you trust, because you can probably get higher up on their list than, Joe Schmo.
Yeah, the sooner the better. Be prepared. It's going to take months to get surveyors to survey your property, determine exactly, what the lines are now, and get soil engineers, geothermal engineers, whatever are required for the construction. Progress will be slow. These people are going to be backed up out the wazoo. And the system will not adjust to your schedule. The new construction, a lot of people don't think about this, but new construction will have to conform to current codes and regulations. You might have a house that's been there since the 50s, or had a house that's, was built in the 50s. Well, the way that house was built, to, the standards it was built to, the provisions, the size, the layout, may not be allowed now. So you may have to come up with a whole new house plan and, whole new features. And it may take you months or years to get plans drawn up and permitted. Then start the construction. In a lot of these areas, there are new zoning laws aimed at preventing future disasters, that will drive up the cost of building. You can probably expect stricter fire codes. You can probably expect, changes to require more distance between the houses. Compliance with updated fireproofing standards could add $50,000 to the cost of a new home. Just making it more fire retardant. No telling. A lot of those houses also are on the coast. The houses in Malibu. Well, since they were built, there may be new setbacks. You may not be able to build in that same location, or you have to have a different foundation. You have to have a different, minimum size and height. Instead of having a pad, you may have to have it built on stilts. You may have to have wider yards, all sorts of things. Ultimately, you're going to end up with a smaller house.
Hey, Gail. It's been a while.
Hey, Gail, how are you doing? Good to see you. I've heard there are some people that won't be allowed to rebuild at all. Yep. Their house was grandfathered in, but once that house is gone, cannot be replaced. I'm thinking a lot of the houses on the Malibu coast may be like that. I'm not sure exactly which ones. There'll probably be more restrictions on building, up in the wilderness areas. And then finally, 16, there will be environmental concerns. There'll be no construction allowed if, the home is too close to the waterline where endangered species like turtles might nest or eagles up in the mountains. So
Replay.
I've been mostly watching replays. Well, you can skip last Tuesday's. It's more like a cartoon.
It's hilarious.
So, I hope and pray that, most of the viewers don't have that issue. But, even those that may be out there, some of this might be advantageous for you to know, be familiar with, kind of help understand what, some of the impacted are going to have to go through. Like I say, for some of these people, it may take 3 to 5 years to get their house rebuilt. The whole area, there's 12, 15,000 structures that have been destroyed. It'll probably take a decade to get all that rebuilt. Some of the historical structures will never be replaced.
No.
E-Train got her membership. Did you get one again?
I gifted 5. Yes, I got one. Jane got one. Woohoo!
Yay. That's one, suggestion I would make to StreamYard is let us determine who they're gifted to.
That's YouTube, though. It's not StreamYard.
Oh, is it? Okay. Mm-hmm. YouTube then. Actually, I will make that suggestion.
Please do.
Anybody have any questions on any of this so far? Please don't hesitate to throw them out. Long-term outlook. Looking ahead, I just don't know any other way to put it. The economic forecast is bleak. Housing markets are grotesquely destabilized. Some areas will see mass exodus. Some areas will become, unaffordable, or you can't rebuild due to new zoning laws. But ultimately, fundamentally, I believe there's always hope. Always hope. Lessons will be learned from this. Some, unfortunately, will lose everything and be unable to rebuild, as Gail mentioned. Others will have the opportunity to rebuild, though it will take an extended period of time. But this is kind of, repeated throughout history. And whenever new communities are built on top of the old, well, there's change. A new civilization is always built on the old. And that's kind of why I picked this picture. I don't know if you can tell, but this is actually a hotel that has discovered remains of prior buildings when it was, digging the foundation and trying to build it. So instead of destroying all that, they built around it. And it's, there's several of these.
Jane has sent me a lot of information about this, actually, about, yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, about, how things are built on top of others. And it's interesting what may have lied under there.
Yeah, underneath. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you could just dig New York City up, you'd go 20, 30 feet and you'd find different eras of history under the streets. Mm-hmm. Here's a store, a Zara store built over an ancient tomb, and they, built in a glass floor, which is kind of cool. Here's the tomb underneath. You go on down, and supermarket built over 1,000-year-old home of ancestors of Vikings.
Wow.
There it is. So you've got these, throughout. And if you're curious, here's, if you want to see these for yourself, here's the article: Modern Buildings Built Over Ancient Ruins, the Mind Circle. So it's kind of a cool little idea, but that's what I always think of when I think of, rebuilding civilization, which is kind of what they're going to be doing there in parts of LA. Jane, Adam Carolla said this whole experience will probably push the state red after they have to deal with all the zoning issues. There's a lot of zoning and bureaucracy and red tape in that area. We'll see how everybody responds to it, but it's going to be a hassle. There's just no way around it. It's going to be a hassle.
We've been through enough hurricanes and floods that it's a mess.
Yeah. For those who can't, rebuild there, they'll start anew somewhere else with new potential and new promise. I'm trying to be a little optimistic here. I know it's going to be difficult. I know these people are hurting. But
and guys, if you have a couple bucks, and you're on YouTube, if they're at the link that is pinned to the top,
yes,
donate to Melissa's friend.
You want to throw his picture up again? Can you do that?
It's going to take me a minute.
Okay.
Because I had to restart everything.
Yeah. Well, Melissa has a good friend that has lost everything. And so we're just throwing out, asking people if you can donate, $5, 10, 20 bucks. This is a good cause. Melissa's been a long time, part of the family, and this is a very close and dear friend of hers, and he has a dog. So like I said earlier, help him buy some dog food, if you will.
Yeah. He and his wife, she actually teaches, and I'm working on it. Hang on.
Yeah, I find it fascinating how deep some of the ruins go. There are examples where it's like 20 or 30 stories underground. It just blows my mind. That's true. Very true. And I love archaeology and architecture.
I'll get there at some point. There we go.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah, this is at a party where he was dressed up as Beetlejuice. And then this is Melissa's defender family, child, whatever. And I believe that's green bean, isn't it?
Yeah, it was chibi.
Okay. So he was a fan of green bean. And Gail, it will be interesting to see how much gets redeveloped by corporations instead of individuals. I saw a rumor that I mean rumors fly with all this kind of stuff in the air. One
Mm-hmm.
was that Governor Newsom was negotiating with corporations to build uh, multiple family units
Mm-hmm.
where a lot of the houses had burned down. He denied it. So I don't know. I don't know if that's even possible. That would take some major rezoning because right now it's all zoned for residential, but it's possible. There's also the idea that Los Angeles wants to become a quote unquote smart city. Well, to do that, you basically have to rebuild Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So if those people are definitely committed to building a smart city, they could use the zoning and regulations to basically take that property and convert it to the space they want. It's kind of like what they're doing in Maui. Those people haven't been able to rebuild. It's just a mess. I feel for the people there. I don't know what's going to happen. Now, we have seen some pilot projects in Northern California that have shown, some success at building fire adaptive communities. I have no doubt that you'll see greater investment in disaster resistant assets, building structures, maybe better land management practices. But, Melissa, it really is a mess. And, she
Mm-hmm.
has seen it first time. We've seen, some of the pictures and can only imagine the extent of it.
Do you have the videos? They should be on Studio.
I don't see them.
They're on Shorts and private.
Okay, shorts. I went to live. Okay.
Can you full screen that? No.
No, not in shorts. That's as big as it gets. Now, this is just a picture of the smoke during the day.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of looks like dusk. Remember what I was, referring to earlier? And so this is just showing the extent of the smoke.
There should be two more.
Yeah, working on it. I got to click 10 buttons to get them up.
So Melissa sent these to me.
This is showing the column of smoke. Remember, we saw it from the satellite view. Well, this is below it.
That was before the other fires had started. That was just the Palisades.
Whoops. I keep wanting to click on the video. I can't do that.
Moffat.
I know, really.
Yeah, that was the morning after the Palisades fire started.
And it has only grown by an order of magnitude since that time.
And Melissa had one on each side of her, of where she lives. That is a lot of smoke. Melissa says Pepperdine was built to be fireproof. Did it burn? I don't know.
I haven't even looked at the campus, haven't heard anything about it. I'm not even sure if it has, had any involvement or bordered it yet.
I
But
bet Melissa knows.
yep.
And Jane says they can incorporate bug bars right into the build because we'll eat bugs and we'll like it. That's pretty good.
Yeah, if you've been watching this, or if you haven't been watching this channel for a while, we talk some about the what's it called?
The
The Great
WEF,
Reset. Yeah, the World Economic Forum and their Great Reset and their plan to have everybody eating bugs. You will eat bugs and you will like
and
it.
owning nothing.
And owning nothing, and you will
and
like
not going anywhere, and you will like it. Okay.
Yeah, like Melissa said, that was before the other fires had started.
Yeah. That second video?
So, yeah, well, basically all the videos. That was like the first day after the fires had started, and they've only increased by an order of magnitude, both in number and size. So you can just imagine. Now some of the
Hey,
how are you doing? Good to see you, Mutt. Now many, will call
Mayor, wifey.
Yes. Many will call for a complete overhaul of California's wildfire management policies. Don't know how effective that will be. I kind of expect. Are y'all familiar with Nicole Shanahan?
Yes. She was running as the vice president under RFK Jr.
Under RFK, yes. And there's some talk that she will run for governor of California. Hasn't announced anything yet. Don't know if she will or won't. But she has come out pretty strongly in favor of overhauling some of these, policies, et cetera. It kind of, to me, sounded like she was trying to stake out a contrary position from Gavin Newsom. So that may be something to keep an eye on, a race. But the overhaul basically would involve just simply integrating, indigenous fire management techniques that have been, used for centuries to sustainably manage forest and prevent catastrophic fires. It is not that difficult. There will also be likely more emphasis on funding essential services rather than political whimsy.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Instead of, cutting firemen and taking money out of their budget year after year and reducing it, they're probably going to be a little bit more appreciated and probably have, Los Angeles. How big has Los Angeles grown in the past 30 years? I can't say it's increased by a third. I don't know. But it's sizable. And to have fewer firemen and fewer fire stations than it had 30 years ago, that's got to cause some people to scratch their heads. So there definitely needs to be, changes in building standards. There needs to be changes in funding priorities, budgetary priorities, and needs to be changes in, wildfire management practices. So what do you do if you're at risk or, and not necessarily fire? We live in a, hurricane prone area. There's a lot of areas where you have certain risk to natural disasters. Obviously, other things can happen as well.
Wait a minute. So we're talking about all kinds of things that may or may not happen in the world. This is not just for natural disasters. So, again, we're going to do some more survival and preparing videos because we think that's probably a really good idea.
Yeah, we do tend to stress self-reliance,
Mm-hmm.
have ability to control your life regardless of the circumstances. And there are some things that are that we have seen in practice and theory is that you can expect if there's a catastrophe, you can expect little or no help, quite possibly for an extended period of time.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to, focus on building self-reliance and maintaining safety in the face of inadequate or slow government support, which is what you should expect because that's 99% of the time what you're going to receive: inadequate or slow government support. First rule is just always situational awareness. You've got to stay alert with pending disasters or after disaster. One priority should be being able to maintain communication. Now, there are apps you can get for your phone, like Zello, Zello, which turns your phone into a walkie-talkie,
Mm-hmm.
and it will work anywhere there is Wi-Fi. So the cell towers may be down, but you still need to maintain some form of communication or be able to communicate.
Or
Um,
if you have a group of very close friends that you trust, have a meeting point. If everything goes to shit, we're going to meet here.
have plans,
Mm-hmm.
create, detailed plans, including different routes, contingency options if primary roads are blocked.
Buy a map.
Yeah, because a lot of the web connected services on your phone probably won't work. You probably won't be able to get cell service. Uh, you want to be able, or have in place some home defense measures. Some people would say you need motion lights, security cameras, so you can see outside without having to open your door or window. You want
That
to be able to
depends.
reinforce your doors and windows to
Mm-hmm.
deter looters or trespassers. Hopefully, you can form some sort of neighborhood watch or coalition to provide mutual protection. And most importantly, is learn to hide essentials. Never let others know what you have. Have any of y'all seen the movie Homestead? Anybody seen that? I went and saw that last week.
Did you? Was it good?
Not bad. Not bad. It's about a kind of an apocalyptic situation, and how do people provide. But it's informative. There's this one, I guess I'll call it an estate, but it's got gardens, orchards. The guy's obviously wealthy, and so he hires contracts with some former operators to provide security, and so there's this compound that can provide for itself. Well, the problem is people in that community know that this place has food and water. So you've got neighbors, quote unquote, close neighbors, close friends. not so close friends, acquaintances. You've got government officials trying to storm that compound to get the food for themselves. Now, I can't tell you what to do. Some people may say, I can't tell my friends and family no. So whatever I have, I'll share.
Be careful with that.
Yeah, it's because unless you have a way to replace it, unless, together y'all can produce more food than what you consume, you're just, shortening your time till you become desperate.
Oh, Clay, I didn't tell you. I got a goat.
You got a goat?
She's not
Is
here right now, but she will be. She's so pretty. She's a baby, and I went to a house where they had all these goats. It's the only one they hadn't named, and she walked right up to me and she put her little hooves on my leg. I was outside with all the goats, and I picked her up. She just put her head on my shoulder. I was like, oh my gosh. And the guy was like, you can have her. I'm like, I said, will you keep her until I have a pin for her? He's like, of course. So I think I'm
what
going to
are
name
you,
her Calliope because she's kind of like a calico.
what are you going to do with a goat?
She's the
Huh?
greatest of all time. She's so cute.
um, that's funny. Did
What?
not know that. So that's just cute. But, think about it. If you've got food and water and your acquaintances or people across the street that you really don't know don't have food and water and they're getting desperate, how are you going to be prepared to handle that? Because that is going to be a very real issue. Build skills, acquire skills while you can, self defense, first aid, stockpile tools for rescue, recovery, such as pry bars, saws or whatever. And have the means to defend yourself against stronger or more numerous assailants. They prefer weak targets.
Invest in lead, as Jane says, and have
Um,
a plan. Have a bag ready you can throw in the car and get out in under 5 minutes.
yeah, have a backup plan and then make a backup plan. Have a plan, then make a backup plan. Then make a backup plan to your backup plan.
Um, Sky, I will as soon as I get a picture of her. I didn't take one the other night. I don't know why. She's the cutest damn thing in the world, but she's black and white and tan, and she's so cute. And she's little.
Some basic recommendations would be to have a kind of an emergency fund with at least 3 to 6 months of living expenses. You want to always have some cash in small denominations at home for use during power outages. Here we could very easily lose power for a week. And so if you needed to go to the store and you only have credit cards, they won't take it. They will take cash. For gas, same thing. If you have insurance, home insurance, review your home, review your renter's business insurance to ensure coverage for specific disasters unique to your area. You want to make sure that you opt for replacement cost to protect against, inflation, because that's a very real issue. And if you're worried about premiums, then think about your deductible. If you've got $1 million house and you've got a $500 deductible, you can bump that up to 5,000 or 10,000, because that really won't materially impact your ability to rebuild your house, but it could save you on the annual premium. Stock
name
up
is
on
going to be
resources.
Calliope. Sorry.
Go ahead and spell that for us. Go ahead and type that out.
Calliope. Calliope.
That's funny. How the hell did you come up with that name?
Because she's kind of calico looking.
Okay. It sounds like calligraphy.
Calliope.
That's all right. It's cute. Miss Goat needs her own IG. She probably will have her own IG.
Mm-hmm.
Things you want to stock up on are, energy, flashlight batteries, batteries for your radio. If you, can have one, obviously a generator, solar panels, food. You ought to have at least 2 weeks minimum. And you need nutrient dense foods like peanut butter, lentils, tuna, chicken, canned chicken, brown rice, whole wheat crackers. Obviously, you need some hot sauce.
Hot
Maybe
sauce.
some, yeah, the spice of life. And water. Or be able to, learn how to purify your own water. And we'll actually have a show on that before long. You want to have assets that are barterable, that you can trade for other things. You can barter like batteries, tools, fuel. So we'll talk more about emergency preparedness and specific items, on an upcoming Tuesday night. Finally, you want to have your important financial documents scanned and backed up both online and paper copies in a secure place that you can
paper.
get to. Pardon?
I love paper.
Yeah.
Clay's like, why don't you just put it on the cloud? I'm like, what if the cloud disappears?
Oh, I never say put anything on the cloud. I'm not a cloud
in the
fan.
Computer. I print everything. He's like, do you have to print all these 50 pages? I'm like, yes, I do. I have to.
Yeah. Essential documents I have paper and I have on the computer. And I'll have the paper in a modestly safe location. You also, during a disaster, you want to monitor your credit for fraudulent activity. Most people get too preoccupied to do this, but there's a lot of times in disaster when personal information may be at risk. Looters could steal your computer or some of your files, or maybe you left your driver's license, lost it somewhere, whatever. But keep an eye on your credit. Use Credit Karma or some of the other online services. Credit Karma is free. And that way, if there's a problem, you can stop it quickly. So, hope that helps. Anybody have any questions?
Fireproof box. Yes, true. What are stonks?
Stonks are stocks that stink.
Ah.
So thought I would throw out a little bit about finance. I mean, just in keeping with the Moffat on money, even though we were talking, I know.
None of this is
talking
good.
about some of the economic issues there.
This is all crap news. Nobody wants this. It's not good.
Nobody wants none of this. But stink, stank, stonk.
There you go. This is when I want to go. La 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 la. Don't want to hear it.
Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder what she's doing on a channel named Moffat on Money.
I don't want to hear bad money news. That's who does.
Well, if you're aware of what's going on, it can save you money. That's a good thing.
That's what I have you for.
Yeah. I'll send you my bill.
Uh-huh.
Now, stonks. Don't know how many people have noticed it, but the market has done nothing since October. Nvidia is down 30%. Apple, not so bad, down 2.5%. You've got the remember we talked about the Mag 7, the Magnificent 7 stocks that were driving the whole market the first half of 2024.
Yep.
The rest of the market wasn't doing a whole lot, but these 7 stocks, accounted for 90% of the gain in the S&P 500. Well, they've struggled the past few months. Apple's down 2.5%. Microsoft, Google, Tesla, Amazon are all down as well. Now, looking at the overall markets, the Dow is down 5.5%. S&P's down 6.2%. And the Russell 2000 is down nearly 8%. We're almost in correction territory for the major indices. The Dow's halfway there, but particularly the Russell, the broadest index, of small caps, is very close. Could reach it in another day or two, actually. Now, to me, more important would be the treasury markets, the bond markets.
Ugh, oy
Yeah. Most people kind of roll their eyes when you start talking about bonds, but bonds are the most sophisticated, most informative market out there. The yield on the treasury, the 10-year treasury, which is probably one of the most important rates in the world, is up 120 basis points since August, since the Fed started cutting. Now you go, why is the 10-year so important? Well, because it's tied to mortgage rates. As the 10-year goes up, mortgage rates go up. So mortgages are up nearly 120 basis points over the same period of time. Currently, the mortgage rate's gone from 6 to 7.25%. And we're not done yet. We talked a little bit Tuesday about the Treasury issuing massive amounts of debt this year because, thank you, Janet Yellen and other things, but probably going to be around $12 trillion in new Treasury debt issued, refinancing and new debt. Well, with this amount of supply, gross amount of supply, absolutely gross, obscene amount of supply, you've got the 3 biggest buyers, China, Japan, and Saudi Arabia, haven't been buying for the past year. In addition, they're selling what treasuries they do have. So you've got tons more supply. You've got a bunch less demand. What that means is that interest rates are going to continue to go up. We will likely see an 8% mortgage before long, and possibly higher. I can pretty much guarantee that the massive Treasury borrowings over this next year will force rates higher, no matter what the Fed does. Now, kind of talking about the Fed and the Fed's worst nightmare is kind of coming true. We've talked about inflation for, the past 6 months, how it's going to come back. Well, it's coming back. The reality of it is it has been increasing for the past 4 or 5 months. This week we had new ISM. It's a survey of manufacturers, and the Purchasing Managers Index on their cost for raw materials, raw goods, increased. As you can tell, increased significantly. The new ISM data is a leading indicator for the general inflation rate, CPI. And it shows prices paid by manufacturers at a 22-month high.
Okay, Moffat, I can't see the date range on this.
Okay, this is the year 24. This is the year 23, 22, 21, 2019.
So the COVID is the high.
Well, yeah, post-COVID, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And so the prices paid are now higher than they've been any time for the past 22 months, almost 2 years. The last time they were this high, the CPI was around 5 to 6%. And it has a very, very high correlation with core CPI. So we likely will see core CPI increase from 3 to 4.5% over the next month or two, couple months. So basically, what you've got is higher inflation and a stagnant or declining economy. That is the Fed's worst nightmare because they can do nothing. Anything they do will either feed inflation or hurt the economy more. That's the only two choices. And so you've got the Fed's kind of getting both horns. If you are hoping for further interest rate cuts by the Fed, not happening. In fact, if this continues, and it will, the Fed is more likely to hike again before they cut. So that is, I just thought I would throw out some more good news since we were on a roll tonight. Ellen, you want to talk about your goat more?
I'm trying to get a picture of her right now.
Well, I'm happy for you. That's cute. You're going to have to build it a nice pen.
He said he'll take a picture tomorrow morning and send it to me. So, because he's got a few babies, and
Okay.
just kind of dug me. So,
post it on Twitter.
Okay, and then I'll send it to you too.
Yeah. And while we're at that point, if you will, please do the things. Hit the like and subscribe button for us. Just ring the hell out of that bell. And you have any questions, comments, thoughts?
Let us know.
Future topics. Always email me at moffatonmoney@gmail.com or DM me on Twitter, Moffat on Money. If you're not following, please do.
Yes, please. And whoever, wants to take a picture and start an Instagram account, y'all let me know. I'll keep you updated on Calliope. Calliope the goat.
You ought to set that up and run it because you'll be the one taking all the pictures.
I know.
That's just.
I might make her a house goat. What do you think? Anyone?
I think you need to talk to your other roommates and see whether or not
what I got was yep.
Yeah.
But hey, it is what it is. I am who I am.
What does the guy do with them when it's 20 degrees outside?
Oh, he's got like a pen. And then they have like a little house they go into. Yeah, and they've got their mama. They've got actually two mamas. And Calliope is still bottle fed. Her mama is not a good feeder. But anyway, yeah, she just like, and so I just picked her up. She's my goat. She's got little tiny horns.
That's so funny.
I know. It's not really funny. I mean, it was just really, really kind of cute. And she's precious. And she gives me kisses.
Well, you're happy, so that's a very good thing. Very happy.
I mean, he doesn't like a little goat that licks him on the face.
Yeah, she's
Besides
not
you.
a faint. She's not a fainting goat, is she?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay, just a regular goat.
She's just a goat.
Very cool.
Just a sweet little goat.
Well, you'll have to, when you get her, you'll have to have her on the show.
Of course.
We can have another pets night.
We can have a goat night.
All right. Well, that's all I have for tonight.
Clay can't top the goat conversation.
Can't top the goat. At least I didn't turn into Alvin tonight.
That's true. I just have a weird lag thing go. One of us has to have an issue. Like,
Yeah. You think StreamYard would be improving the algorithm and the code. Doesn't seem to be headed in that direction.
it is what it is.
So, I mean, did you, I assume your Wi-Fi is okay.
Wi-Fi is great. Goats. Yeah, Wi-Fi is fine. It's something with I've got a few things going on. So, yeah. So the other roommates just said, don't encourage others to get goats. That's crazy. I was like, no, it's not.
Said don't encourage others to get goats. E-Train.
Yes.
Why? You're going to need all the goats?
No.
You're going to hoard the goats?
You're extra goats. I may have told one of our members about that. Just saying.
All right. Well, y'all, thank you for joining us tonight. We are all for house goats. I presume that's a motion and that vote would carry almost unanimously.
Mm-hmm. I'm all for house goats.
Is there really such a thing as a house goat?
Yes.
That's funny.
There are goats, like the pygmy goats. They're like little dogs. They have to stay in the house.
That's funny.
But this will be a bigger goat when it grows up.
Yeah, who's going to keep her company?
Talou and Chunk and the chickens.
All right. Sky, good night to you. And Melissa, yes, do take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm. And if you need anything, you know who to call. Let us know.
Y'all, thank you so much. Enjoyed being with you tonight. Hope, it was profitable to you. We appreciate you being with us. Mm-hmm. And we'll look forward to seeing you Tuesday night for Tuesday night Q&A.
Absolutely. So, you guys have a great night.
Until then.
By the late kisses.
Our time is up. We thank you for yours. Good night.
Good night.